Back in 2019, before the release of Sword and Shield, the Pokemon community was a bit of a war zone. Sword and Shield was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. For them, the past 8 or so years had been filled with nothing but the same old formula, and it was getting old. And I agree for the most part, but it's worth remembering that Sun and Moon were filled with tons of gameplay/story changes that served to shake up the formula. But when that came out, people started to complain that they changed too much. I'm not defending a multi-billion-dollar company, but as a community, we have to admit, Pokemon fans have no idea what they want. My main problems with Sword and Shield were that they felt like they were rushed to get out the door. I think most problems with the game could be attributed to that. With the amount of money Gamefreak has, I just thought they could have done a little more to shake it up. But everyone else treated this game like it killed their grandma or something. The hate for this game was blown way out of proportion, and when all was said and done, these games were just alright. Nothing to praise, but also nothing to outright hate. Eventually, a lot of this criticism just became a hate bandwagon for YouTubers to post dozens of videos on and rake up the views.
Ironic.
So now we have Pokemon Legends Arceus, which promises to change up the classic Pokemon formula to provide a blend of action, exploration, and the series' RPG roots, along with addressing a lot of the problems people had with Sword and Shield. So what does it have to offer? Well, let's see. This is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Before we dive in, just know that this video will have spoilers. That is if Persofia Gaming and Pokeli's thumbnails didn't already spoil most of the plot twists for you. Thanks for that, by the way. In my Poke MMO review/analysis, whatever you want to call it, despite it not aging the best, I think one of my points still stands. Older Pokemon games had a sense of exploration, adventure, and achievement that the newer games lacked. Legends Arceus gives me all of that in spades. The main goal of this game is clear from the very start. God gives you his and tells you to seek out all Pokemon.
I'm into it.
Then you meet with this guy and you realize this is a Pokemon game and start skipping out the dialogue. I'm kidding. Kinda. You meet up with the Galaxy team. They tell you to prove your worth or you'll be banished from the village and left for dead. Eventually you get your starter, one thing leads to another, and you end up in the Obsidian Fieldlands, the first area of the game. The first thing you'll notice is how much more freedom you're given. After the tutorial, you're free to do whatever you want. No more stupid roadblocks, no more annoying rivals interrupting you every 10 feet. We're given a task and the freedom to approach it however we want, whenever we want. That's honestly the game's biggest strength. It breaks away from the restrictive nature of the previous games to create a feeling of independence that no other game in the series has. They handled the exploration in this game pretty well. The environments might not be the prettiest, but they all felt fun to explore. Despite not being fully open world, the areas were large enough so that it still felt like I was exploring this vast wilderness. I'm still discovering new stuff as we speak. The only area I didn't really like was the Alabaster Icelands. When people say open world games feel empty, this is probably what they mean. It's just a frozen wasteland with Pokemon scattered about and a few icicles here and there. Easily the worst area. But all of the others are pretty good. If I were to rank them, it'd probably go Crimson Mirrorlands, Cobalt Coastline, Obsidian Fieldlands, Coronet Highlands, then Alabaster Icelands. To be completely honest, I don't think the game looks that bad. I can see the style they were going for, and I think it works pretty well, for the most part. It's definitely the best looking 3D Pokemon game. In each area, you'll get some sort of ride Pokemon. One is a horse, moose thing that you can use to move around quicker. One is a bear that you probably won't use to find treasure. One's a fish that lets you perform Pokeball trick shots. One's a man in a fursuit carrying you across mountains. And one's a big bird that lets you fly. They're basically just ride Pokemon from Sun and Moon, but more fun to use. I still would have preferred if we could ride our own Pokemon though. They could have served the same purpose, with the only difference being that they actually belong to you. It's kind of a nitpick and it doesn't really change anything, but You know, it's like buying versus renting games. You rent a game and yeah, you can play it and you might even beat it, but you don't really own it, you know? Battles are so much quicker and to the point. All the pointless flavor text is gone in favor of a more action-oriented system. You can start a battle, pick an attack, start running, then watch as your Pokemon obliterates the enemy. It's just so much faster than it's ever been. It's more fun than it's ever been. You can't just train up a single Pokemon and go through the entire game without any challenge. Even Pokemon that are much lower leveled than you can do a good amount of damage, which makes the moments where you're getting jumped by 3 or 5 of them even harder. The new strong and agile style attacks needs to be a mainstay. It fits in so well with the established formula and makes you strategize just a little bit more during battles. Sometimes there will be a moment where you have a chance to finish a Pokemon off with a strong styled attack. But if you fail, that means the next Pokemon will have 2 turns to attack, and if it's something that's really strong against your Pokemon, it could be a death sentence for your team. But if you don't use it, you risk not killing the thing in front of you, and none of your other Pokemon could be good against it, and the battle could end there. Weird how the smallest addition can drastically change how strategies are made. The highlight of this game is definitely the new catching mechanics. Let me just say, this is how it's done. Letting us manually throw the Pokeball is the best choice Gamefreak has ever made. It feels so satisfying to just chuck this thing whenever you want. They also streamlined the whole system without removing any of the difficulty. Catching a Pokemon off guard is the easiest way to catch it, so that can put you in a situation where you have to find a way to get behind it without it spotting you. So maybe you can throw an item to attract it, but then other Pokemon might go to the berry and they might be able to see you, which would alert everyone in the area. So maybe you'll use like a scatter shot or something to lead them away. Once you finally got the Mon in the position you want, you have to sneak up with a heavy ball and hope to God it doesn't finish eating the berry before you get a chance to throw the ball.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
This is that stress, that excitement, that freedom that Pokemon's been missing. My favorite use of this new catching system is probably in these time-space distortion fields. It's just an onslaught of Pokemon being brought in and out of the field, and one wrong move could mean the difference between life, death, and a rare catch. And the feeling you get when one of these clears and you're just heading out with a bunch of newly caught Pokemon and that calm music starts playing, mwah. Legends takes old items and kinda shifts them to fit in this new style. For example, heavy balls can't be thrown very far, but they're super effective if you can catch a Pokemon off guard. Or the feather ball can be thrown really far, really fast, but is usually less effective. Berries can now be thrown to attract Pokemon instead of just healing. You can also use what you find around the world to craft new items on the fly. You can craft Pokeballs, potions, smoke bombs, scatterbangs, revives, and it sometimes makes it feel like a survival game, especially in those space-time distortions. Frantically trying to craft what you need to catch a certain Pokemon, it's a lot of fun. Catching Pokemon is really the main focus of this entire game. Instead of gym badges, you get stars based on your research level. Even a simple Bidoof adds to your research level, so you're always encouraged to catch and battle Pokemon. This is the only Pokemon game where I've actually felt inclined to catch all the monsters. Not only because it's a lot more efficient and fun to do, not because there's only 250 of them, not because of that little dopamine rush I get every time I hear that little, not because releasing the ones you don't want gives you a crap ton of grit gravel, which can be used to make your Pokemon stronger in this new and improved stat system. Not because they all have these cute little animations when you let them out of their Pokeball, but because Pokemon God told me so. It's also just fun to see all the new designs they've come up with the Hisuian forms. Legends has a rare chance to explore what these Pokemon would have looked like 200 or so years into the past, and for the most part it doesn't disappoint. I think my favorite Hisuian is Decidueye. They took my favorite Pokemon and turned them from a cool archer to a cool samurai type fighter. It's really grown on me over time. But that quadruple flying type weakness is terrifying, especially in a game like this. Speaking of terrifying, there's these alpha Pokemon you can find around the map. They're like the Dynamax battles, but like better and more scary somehow. Seeing one of these early game is freaking terrifying. Pokemon quickly turns from a fun RPG to a survival horror experience, where every moment can be your last. Especially when they got a few smaller Pokemon backing them up, they can easily get 3 or 4 hits in before you even get a chance to attack. It's no Dark Souls, but it's definitely hard. And it all comes to a head with the noble Pokemon. First of all, the cutscenes that play before these fights are amazing, especially the Arcanine one. The way it walks through the lava to face you right before the fight is just full of the exaggerated swagger of an enraged Arcanine.
It gives me goosebumps every time he does it.
These cutscenes add so much life to these bosses. The Arcanine boss even gets its own little story arc dedicated to it. But the highlight of these boss battles is obviously the battles themselves. The goal is pretty simplistic: hit the noble Pokemon with bombs to quell them, and sometimes you'll get a chance to use your Pokemon to do more damage. But the fun and challenge comes from how each of these are designed. The first two are nothing special, but the turning point for these fights comes when you face Arcanine. This was mine and probably a lot of others' first death in the game, and it was the first time I've blacked out in a main story of a Pokemon game since like 2016. After asserting his dominance, Arcanine will just repeatedly pile drive you into the lava, and it feels amazing. My favorite boss in the game is definitely the Electrode boss fight. It just fires a barrage of attacks at you and you literally cannot stop moving. There's explosions going off left and right, and you're being targeted by paralyzing energy orbs. It really felt like these things wanted me dead. This is the type of challenge I wanted from a Pokemon game. It's not too hard, but it can definitely get pretty challenging sometimes. They did an amazing job blending the classic turn-based battles with a more action-oriented overworld. All of these gameplay changes is what Pokemon has needed. That core gameplay loop that made Pokemon so fun has been polished and streamlined to near perfection, and its emphasis on action is a perfect fit for this type of gameplay. I can never, and I mean never, go back to the way it was. I hope future games continue to expand and improve on this style, because this is it. But with that, it's time to get into a negative. The game's biggest fault is probably its story. It's not bad, it's just, well, let's just put it like this. For a game with so much dialogue and so many cutscenes, it has surprisingly little to say, and insists on delivering that information in the least interesting way possible. In my discussion video, I said that it's weird that Bugsnax has voice acting, but Pokemon didn't. You know what's even weirder? Sonic Adventure 2, which was released in 2001, had full voice acting and fully animated cutscenes. Did it have Pixar level animation? Yes, but tell me which one you prefer.
So far, so good. Hey, that's...
That blue hedgehog again, of all places.
I found you, Faker.
Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh? You're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words.
I like the characters, these three bandit kids: Silene, Ingo, Adaman, Arizu, Sabi, Irida, Ingo, Volo, and Ingo. But I'd like them even more if they had some voice acting to give them life. I think Gamefreak should take notes from the Pokemon Evolutions anime. Imagine if we got a cutscene akin to this.
It is Necrozma. The instant it woke, it flew into a rage and repelled everything that came near it.
I did like when the game had fully animated cutscenes, but those were far and few between, and the lack of voice acting really brings them down for me. They don't even have awkward anime grunts. With all that said, this is still probably one of the better stories in a mainline Pokemon game, which is honestly kinda sad. There's not really an excuse. You could say it's for kids so it doesn't have to be good, first of all. But also, I guarantee kids don't want to sit through lines and lines of dialogue. Trust me, we have no patience. Kids will probably just skip through everything anyway, so you might as well make a good story for the people who are willing to sit through it. Or maybe I just proved why they don't have to try. Crap. But when I say the story is lacking, I'm definitely not talking about the world building or the lore. Since Hisui is a Sinnoh of old, we get a lot of context for the stuff that happens in Diamond and Pearl, which just leaves you like this for the entire game. In one cutscene, we get to see how Spear Pillar is formed. We get to see how Lake Acuity, Verity, and Valor become caves. We get to use the Azure Flute. We get to see the origin forms of Dialga and Palkia. We get to see ancestors of a ton of old characters, including Cynthia and Cyrus. We get to see an amnesia-struck Ingo trying to find his way in the past. We get to see the beginnings of Jubilife City, and when we arrive at recognizable locales, the music isn't a one-to-one remix. Instead, they opt to give you a certain feeling before eventually hitting you with the main motifs. You know what, while we're at it, let's talk about the music. Before playing this game, I had a firm belief that the Alola games had the best soundtrack, and after playing Legends, I gotta say, this might have the edge. I don't think there's a single bad track in this entire OST. All of the battle music is on point, from the trainer battle theme, to the Warden battle theme. The Midnight theme is really peaceful and creates kind of a sense of discovery, like that feeling you get when you're taking out the trash late at night and there's just nothing but darkness and lampposts ahead. And the Jubilife Village theme is like the nostalgic feeling of a Pokemon town theme times 10. But the best songs in the game are the ones that play for the post-game boss. In fact, let's just talk about the post-game in general. After beating Dialga and Palkia, you're given a few missions and eventually you meet Volo on top of Mount Coronet. He gets mad at you for basically being Pokemon Jesus and challenges you to a battle. His team is essentially just Cynthia's team from Gen 4, which is already known as one of the hardest fights in Pokemon. Then after you barely beat that, he summons Giratina, and without any healing, you have to take on Pokemon Satan. Then once you finally get in that last hit, this man has a phase 2. So that's 8 Pokemon in a row, 6 of them being from Cynthia's team, and 2 of them being legendary Pokemon. Yeah, this is easily the hardest fight in Pokemon history, especially if you're like me and basically all your Pokemon were in their early to mid 60s. And then after that, the post game's still not done. You can seek out the forces of nature and try to catch those, and once you seek out all Pokemon, you can confront Arceus. There's just so much stuff to do, and it's all fun and never feels like a grind. This is my favorite post game in the series, hands down. Gamefreak really took a lot of the criticism to heart. Pokemon Legends improves on everything the previous games did. Aside from the story, the biggest problem I have with the game is that it still feels like it was rushed. Assuming this began development right after Sword and Shield wrapped up, they've had a little under 2 years to make this game start to finish. That's just not enough time to make a game. Here's what I think they should do. Have one team work on some Legends DLC to satisfy the company and the fans. Maybe they can have one DLC take place in the Distortion world, where it's just a never-ending space-time distortion with ultra-hard difficulty and even better rewards. Then they could have one taking place in the Hisuian Underground, and they could figure out what to do with that, and maybe add some type of multiplayer. Then you can have another team start working on the next mainline game. Give them all the time they need to make their masterpiece. I wouldn't mind waiting 5 years. There's a lot of talent at Gamefreak. They just need some time to perfect their craft. Or you can release it 9 months later. That works too. But with all that said, I'm so glad they decided to go this direction. Despite its lackluster story and less than fantastic graphics, its excellent gameplay, great soundtrack, and fun post-game is enough to let this be, in my opinion, the best Pokemon game to date. The future's looking brighter than ever, and I can't wait to see what they do next.